now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, the second half of the pod where the Man United fan has to unfortunately sit down and allow the Gooners to have their little party. But before I do that, I need to go through the results of the weekends, nice and long, so that these Gooners have less time to talk. So I'm going to slowly go through. I'm joking. So Newcastle played Villa on Friday. That was a 1-1 draw. I was particularly annoyed about this game because I had two Villa at the keeper and the defender at the back, and they conceded in the 94th minute with the last kick of the game. So I was particularly annoyed about that. Leeds and Chelsea battled out a 0-0 draw, which was a decent game. Once again, I've been made to look silly from having a go at Gravy saying there's no such thing as an entertaining 0-0.
You know what? I was just about to get you on that as well. You're lucky.
No, I take it back. It was a really good game actually. Two attacking teams just unfortunately couldn't break each other down. Palace took on West Brom. It was a Luka Milivojevic penalty in the first half, which got them through that game. The big headline was Wilfred Zaha refusing to kneel. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel sometimes political statements just need to be made and not discussed. And I don't know. I feel a bit. That's another podcast altogether. Everton lost at home to Burnley. We didn't see that coming. They seem to be doing it against the big teams, but the
Burnley
bottom half teams do not seem to be doing too well against.
They're picking up points. Burnley.
They are picking up points, and there was an absolute screamer from Dwight McNeil, a very decent young England international, just been called up to the European Championships with the under-21s. Calvert-Lewin got back on the score sheet after a few games not scoring. He also got man of the match. What is there to say about City? Smashed Fulham 3-0 with something ridiculous like 7 or 8 changes. And for all of those people that have Stones in their fantasy football team, I am disgusted because you are just racking up those points. Our previous podcast guest, Tom, commiserations. I feel for you. 2-1 at home to Brighton, a team that can't buy a win. Man like Danny Welbeck's getting on the assist.
Hey, Tony loves Welbeck. Tony loves Danny Welbeck.
I love Welbeck. I love Danny. Love him.
We'll get to that soon.
Yeah.
Leicester put pressure on United with a 5-0 absolute drubbing of Sheffield United. And I know a Sheffield United fan, and I'm tempted to send him a text to try and get him on this pod because ultimately I've got to hear what it feels like to be a Sheffield United fan at the moment. You get rid of your boss that you've had for 5 years, take him up from League One, and for the first time in your Premiership history, you shit more than 3 goals in a game, and they just look. Look awful.
You know what though? And I think it goes back to that whole fans getting a bit excited. Liverpool fans have done it this season, like with winning the league and all that. Just remember, last season they were tipping Wilder to be the next England manager, and Sheffield United to be playing European football this season. Like, yeah, okay,
yeah,
Webs.
No, you're right, and you just reminded me. It's my my missus, her best pal, her husband is a Sheffield United fan, and it's just reminded me. The last time I spoke to him was well during lockdown, kind of before the new season started, and he was very optimistic. And I must send him a text and ask him to jump on just so he can tell us how he's feeling at the moment because, I'm pleased for Iheanacho. We just talked about that the pod before about he's hitting form and he's got himself a hat trick. I'm massively pleased for him. He was so emotional in that game. He didn't even celebrate. There was no smiles. I think it was just an absolute relief that it was finally working for him. So that was really nice to see. I think Arsenal played. I don't know who they played, but we'll come back to that. Team. United beat West Ham 1-0. It was a Craig Dawson own goal. I mean, I watched this game, and maybe I'm a bit biased, but all the reports I read suggest it was a lucky victory and it was tight. It wasn't tight. For a team that's supposed to be the best team in London, for a team that's supposed to be looking at Champions League, they set up with 5 defenders, didn't have a single shot on target for the first half, and defended. And United just pressed, got their goal, and then all of a sudden, West Ham decided to play. And at that point, we were evenly matched, which is quite embarrassing for United.
Well, it's
but
funny
we
you
were
say that,
evenly
Al,
matched.
because
But they just couldn't break through.
I spoke to Oaks this week. Oakie's a good friend of me and Al's, and he's a big West Ham fan. Even though I don't know how that works because he jumped from Leeds United, but that's a whole nother show, Oaks. But he did say he would come on the pod depending on the results of United and Arsenal. So I don't know if he'll be coming on after these games. But yeah, continue.
I think if anybody watched that, you cannot say that United were lucky or it was a fortunate own goal. You know, Greenwood had some chances. You know, Fernandez looked pretty decent. Passed to Fred, did his job. Dan James still in a little bit of form, missed a few goals that he could have got, a few chances. There was no way that they were in that game at all. I mean, if you look at the stats, come on, you know, in the end, in the second half, they had 7 shots, none of them on target. United had 15 shots, 4 on target, 62% possession. So I don't know where these reports come and say it was an even game. But anyway, I digress. Liverpool back to winning ways. Diego Jota against his old club popped up there. All those FPL players, all thinking about bringing him in. That might be the revival Liverpool need. And now, without further ado, we go to the North London derby. Now, I'm going to preface this conversation and say that was the game that I was supposed to watch, and I did watch it. And first of all, can I just ask people like Jamie Redknapp to get a better vocabulary? Because the quote that came from him at the time was that Eric Lamela goal is the best goal he has seen in the Premier League.
Rubbish.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It was a good goal, though.
It was a good goal. And Gravy, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I'll take up my disdain for Spurs. And Gravy, you know, I'm not the biggest Arsenal fan either. There's a mutual respect, but I'm not an Arsenal fan, you know. But what annoyed me was his ridiculous. I don't know what this love for Spurs is that he's got.
For Spurs.
You know, he's got this massive love for Spurs. He said, I quote you, that is the best goal I've seen in the Premier League. Now, if he had said that's the best goal I've seen in a North London derby, I would still say that's nonsense, because you're forgetting, you know, man like Danny Rose, man like David Bentley. You know, there's been some decent goals scored in the North London derby.
Let's not forget Rositzky, man. Let's not forget Rositzky, man.
Listen, you'll get your time. You'll get your time. Like I said, I'm prefacing this conversation because I know I'm not going to have much to say, so I'm getting my stuff out.
North London's red, my friend.
I'm not going to have much to say. Now, let's be honest. That Eric Lamela goal was a horrible goal, right? I think it was horrible enough that he tried to Rabona it, but to Rabona and a nutmeg is disrespectful, right? But
he's got a habit of doing that.
Tottenham showed once again is this horrible defensive football where you just think you can win games by keeping it tight at the back and then nicking a goal. That's not how you beat, you know, that's not how you beat any team. That's awful. But Anyway, we move on from that. Odegaard got the equaliser, and if I'm honest, I didn't actually see the Lacazette penalty. I turned my back because my kids were in the room, and when I turned back, there was all this fuss, and then he had scored the penalty, so I didn't actually get to see it. But from what I read, there was a lot of controversy because apparently Lacazette had an air shot, and then he was fouled by Sanchez, and I don't know. There's a lot of technicalities behind it.
As the Rock.
What doesn't matter? What was true?
It doesn't matter.
What is true beyond that is Tottenham weren't good for the win. Lamela got himself sent off stupidly, and London is red. But I think it does come as some caveats, that win, because you know what was all that about Pierre Eric Aubameyang? You know that's something to be discussed. But ultimately, I'm going to step aside. And I'm going to pose this question to Clock and Tone. First of all, I want him to give us a little bit of a roundup of what he saw the game. And I want him to give us a little bit of an insight of how that compares to some of the best North London derbies that he's been to watch. So over to you, Tone.
Thank you, Al. I'm going to start my little bit by having a go at you, Al. Can you remember how you finished last week's podcast?
He's not happy about this.
Your last words, Al, were say a little prayer for Arsenal.
I did say that. I did.
Obviously, you did, because you work magic. It wasn't a great game. And as much as I hate to agree with a Man United fan, you've got a lot of things right there. One, the Lamela goal, which everybody said was brilliant. I liked the goal. It was a clever goal, but it was a lucky goal.
Yeah, it was.
The goalkeeper was unsighted. He didn't stand a chance. Plus the fact the number of legs that had to go through to score the goal was incredible. It should have hit somebody's leg long before it reached inside the goal. But I loved the skill he used to do what he did. And I know he's done it once before. So full marks. Yes, a good goal, but a lucky goal. Now, the penalty, and whether or not Chris and Greg agree with me, I thought was a bit soft, and really Arsenal were a bit lucky for that one.
Agreed.
He made contact after the ball had gone, and in fact, Lacazette was clearly missing, hitting the air, and was never going to hit that ball. So
at least he didn't scream this week.
Yeah, at least he didn't scream. I watched that and I can't believe, but I have to say, although he's been brought to the front as regards an ace screamer, which I know he is, isn't that true of so many players? And I'm afraid...
No, it is, and it's awful.
Yeah,
it's awful.
It's awful. It's ruining football. It's ruining my enjoyment of the game. And when I see things like that, when I go and see Arsenal live, which is so many times, and now is another little question for you, because I've had so much trouble with Man United in the past, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But with that, I just don't quite get. Now, I'm going to be a bit rude, and I'm sorry about this. Have you had elocution lessons, Al?
Have I had elocution lessons?
Yeah.
No, I
because I can't detect a Manchester accent in your voice at all.
We are, kid.
But I go back to the olden days when clubs had firms. I think you know what I mean. And Man United were the only club to have two firms. One obviously in Manchester and a second one in London. And consequently, if they didn't get you up in bloody Manchester, they get you when you got back to London. So not a great thing in the past. And because we're talking about Spurs, one of the worst grounds I've ever been to for violence, I have to tell you, I'm just not going to go again. I'm getting too old.
Really?
I'm getting too old to have to put up with having to run to not get hit. And I can't run anymore because my legs don't move as quick as they used to.
Tone, for our listeners,
because it ruins going
for our
on
listeners who don't know much about you, do you mind saying how old you are and how long you've been going to the North London derbies?
Yeah. You'll find out when we talk about defenders, because I'm 71 now, and I've been to loads of North London derbies, and I'm always worried about going there. The Spurs fans don't have to worry so much now we've moved to the Emirates. It was a little bit naughty at Highbury, but I hate to bring that in, but there is a little bit of violence which doesn't get reported still going on.
It's part of football, isn't it?
I've seen too much.
Good that you did bring it up because it's still there.
It is, and I hope it's dying out. And why Arsenal don't really fight anymore is because there's too many of the young fans that might have fought trying to appear on Arsenal's fans' TV, which is a bloody disgrace. I can't
so, do you know
tell
what?
you.
So this is a good point. I think the next question I was going to ask you about was, your memories of some of the best North London derbies. But you raised a good point here. I think there's been a lot of criticism of fan TVs, mainly because, especially AFTVs, because the question is, do they profit off your turmoil? And they all say, actually, do you know what? A fan's voice is important, and it doesn't get.
If it's constructive,
heard.
Though,
we are just as we are just as qualified to talk. And I agree in that respect. They're just as qualified to talk about it than what Jamie Redknapp is. Yeah. Because Jamie Redknapp doesn't go to watch Arsenal each week, so how can I sit there and say what he says? So I do agree that their voice is definitely valuable. But I suppose as another Arsenal fan, how do you feel about those, fan TVs?
Well, mainly they just moan. And supporting a team isn't about moaning about your club. I don't know what Man United fans are like when they get together, but I go along to the football. It's not just the football I enjoy. The most important thing about football, even more important than football, is the fellowship, the friendship, the family of Gooners. And I know so many fans all over the country, over Europe, in America, in Australia, and I'm in contact with them. and I'm on nearly every Arsenal website you can think of, and all I see is moan, bloody moan.
And I can second that with Tony.
We are the team we were.
Go into a football match.
We are the team we were.
But is that the new age fans though, Tone? Is that a new age thing?
Yes, it is, because instant media, be a superstar, and all they want to do is shout out blood. Oh, hello, blood. Yeah, that was awful blood. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I haven't lost too much blood over watching Arsenal over the years. I have lost a little bit of blood, and I did lose some blood in 2002 at Old Trafford, which was
Tony, can I just say, not all Arsenal fans.
So when I say new fans, I mean the sense of these fans that haven't, I suppose, seen the team the way you've seen it, haven't been through the highs, and have kind of come into it just knowing the lows.
Exactly, because as a really good Man United fan, you've been down in Division 2. You went down. The true fans stayed with them down. Sorry, when I say Division 2, I obviously mean the old Division 1, Division 2. They came back up, fans stayed with them, and you are the club that you are, because you've probably got more fans than any other club in the world, which means you've got an awful lot of money, which isn't so much bankrolled as Man City or Chelsea, which is another terrible subject. That game that you talked about, which you won 2-0, I heard the figures, and you probably heard them as well. There was over £1 billion worth of players on that pitch. And how can other teams compete with that alone, except for Chelsea? It's something, obviously, if Alisher Usmanov had got into the club, he might have bankrolled them the way that Sheikh Mansour at Man City and Abramovich at Man United at Man City. But
Tone, but is it any different?
Isn't the same anymore, because you can't compete.
Is it any different to what Blackburn Rovers done? Like, I know it's a different market, but Blackburn sort of bought that title that season they won it. Like, they spent a lot of money in that summer.
Yes, they did.
So I know it's different levels of spending, but at the time it was a lot of money. And if someone come in for Arsenal now, if we got a Sheikh Mansour coming, I'm sure we wouldn't complain about it. We'd be bite their hands off, to be fair. So you know what? I don't hate clubs for that. Like, they're just the lucky ones to do it. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to shout out. I know Al hates me shouting people out, but I've got to shout out the Newcastle fan that thought he's got the title of Mbappe in a Newcastle shirt on his arm because he thought Newcastle were going to take over and sign Mbappe. What a fool you look now. But yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah. Well, obviously that's the bugbears of mine. I have seen some great derbies. Great derbies.
What's your top three?
What ones live in your memory?
Well, I have to say the 5-4, where Spurs did play quite well to nearly get back to winning, but there was this superb goal from Pierre at the end, which I witnessed, when you couldn't believe his dribbling to score the goal from an acute angle. Which, all right, we won 5-4. I know they got a goal back to make it 4. That was incredibly exciting. And once Spurs went down to back to 4, you were bloody really worried, because they were getting in the ascendancy there at the end. The other one I remember, and you've mentioned the guy, he's a Man United fan, David bloody Bentley. That goal he chipped to make it 4-4. And the funny thing, I still laugh to this day, is nearly every Spurs fan had left. There was only a couple of hundred left in their end because they thought they'd lost. And the only satisfaction I got was, well, at least loads of Spurs fans didn't say that Bentley won the goal. Because I always stay to the end. Greg knows. I never leave. If we could be 6-0 down, and I'll still be shouting for them.
Do you know what, Al? Al and Chris, going to football with Tony is like when your mum goes to the shops and sees all the people that she knows. You know, you're like, oh, bloody hell, I just want to go home. Tony will stop and talk to literally everyone in that stadium. And I mean, from the club mascot to the secretary in the club lounge. Like, Tony literally knows everybody in that club. And if anybody I know supports their club like Tone, every club will be run with happy fans, because I've never heard him slag anyone off. Even when everyone was shouting Wenger out, Tony never said it. He never said it, and I give him respect for that. But it is like going to the shop to do that.
I never ever boo a player. Never ever boo a player.
I very famously took my cousin to a League Cup game of Leyton Orient versus Dagenham Redbridge, and it was a weeknight and it was cold, and I said, I'm not staying. It's 0-0, whatever. I think Leighton Orient were losing, or one of them were losing, and as we left the stadium, they equalised. We heard the roar, and then when we got home, we realised it had the record for the most amount of penalties taken in a penalty shootout, and it was something stupid like 21-20. It ended. So there's a moral of the story: do not leave until the game is over.
Exactly. I'm talking too much. I better let Chris have a go. Snails.
Oh, we have Chris every week, man. Although, Chris, talk to us about your North London derby, man.
Listen,
how are you feeling?
It's one of the first derbies. I was chatting to a very, very good friend of mine who, despite everything, is a Spurs fan, and we were saying it's one of the first times over a whole season where two North London derbies have been played, and in both matches, the winning team is the deserved winning team. How often does that happen? Normally, like, there's a lucky goal, you're robbed with an outrageous decision, like someone grabs a last-minute equaliser. But no, like, we fully deserved the win. I mean, you can say it was a fortunate penalty, but we've conceded far more outrageous penalties than that this season alone, let alone in North London derbies. Like, there was almost a carbon copy of this, which is actually worse, where David Luiz gave a penalty away against Watford against Danny Welbeck, and Danny had already shot, and about 5 minutes later he accidentally made collision with his shooting foot.
Do you know what though? Louise and
Mike Dean gave a penalty, but we were much the better team. We battered them. They didn't want it.
Louise
they just
and
did
Jack
not want it.
Are getting on my
Posts were hit.
I spoke to Chris about it in the week about Louise and Jack and their mistakes. Like, this, for me, this win just papers over the cracks at Arsenal. I think we it's because it's the North London derby, anyone can win it, but I actually didn't watch the game live, if I'm honest. I've said to Chris that this season they do my blood pressure. I just can't watch this team. The Burnley game is one.
But the thing is,
a prime example of what I mean about this team. Like, the Burnley game just says everything about it. Like, it's the individual errors that are ruining our chances this season. And I've said it. I've had this conversation with Chris so many times. Like, it's the individual errors, and I'm hearing rumors that David Luiz is going to get another contract. And I'm thinking, why? Like, why are we doing this? Like, why? Let's let him go. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry, Chris, to cut you.
So quite famously, you don't watch those games, and we do rely on Chris to give us, quite an in-depth review on how those games went. And I think it's quite indicative of Arsenal at the moment that you've got so many different fans all support the same team but see the team in different ways. So I suppose a question to all of you, really, start with Tone first, is what constitutes as progress at the end of this season? Now, I look at my team, and I think Tone has every right to question my allegiance to United. But for anyone who doesn't know, I'm happy to talk about it. I think for me, like most younger brothers, you are, as a young boy, you idolize your big brothers. And my big brother at the time was a United fan. He was very much into the team with, McClare, Pallister, all those old greats before it was kind of like global phenomenon. And that's the team he supported. And so when you are yourself, maybe 9 or 10, and your little brother likes football, you make them support the team that you support. Now, growing up, anybody knows that about me. I'm a fiercely proud Londoner. And wherever I go, I'm proud to be from there, to the point where, if your accent isn't from London, you're pretty much foreign to me. I'm a proud Londoner, and given my time again, I would choose differently. But the difference is now, I say it with my kids. When they become older, they are not allowed to support Man United, because these kids have been, they're born, they were both born in Stratford. 2 minutes down the road from. Well, funny enough, you say that my flat that my first child was born in was around the corner. It was behind the London Stadium. You could hear the games. You could hear the goals going in. And 2 minutes down the road from Brisbane Road for Leighton Orient. So given the time again, I would choose differently, but I love my team. And my kids, you know, they are not allowed to support anything but a London club, and I'll let them, you know, I'll let them choose whatever club that is. But you know, it has to be a London club because I'm fiercely proud Londoner. But I look at my team now and I say progress this season is to win a trophy, because ultimately last season we finished second, and the biggest criticism we have of Solskjaer is that he's tactically inept. And if you've managed to finish second in that season, either you're maintaining that second, possibly third, and you've got to back up with a trophy. Otherwise, there is no progress. Finishing second again is not progress. You were knocked out of 3 semi-finals the season before. So really and truly, progress is to win a trophy. You look at other clubs and you can spot where progress is. I find it difficult to look at Arsenal and say, at the end of the season, this will constitute as progress. So I suppose, Tone, you can go first. For you, I mean, you've seen all of it, man. You've seen it all. So what constitutes progress for you?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm a big supporter of Arteta. It's no good changing him. He's never going to get the money to do what he really needs to do, unlike the other teams I've mentioned. But you do see progress with Partey. Obviously, a very good player. Obviously,
big fan of Partey. Vice captain of my national team.
Smith Rowe.
I'm not convinced on Partey yet.
I am with Smith Rowe.
Smith Rowe, yeah.
The playing that, and now we've got Odegaard. That these two are working and understanding. Our problem is, and I know you started to mention it now, Aubameyang, because his discipline record.
This isn't the first time, has it? This is the first time it's happened.
His timekeeping has been bad for a long time, and it's the problem of superstars. And it happens again and again when someone gets too big for the club. And you mentioned David Bentley. He thought he was a brilliant player before he actually was. And where is he now? He was very gifted. I really thought he was going to come on strong, but the old money and the big cars got to him, and he lost it, as a few other players I've seen. But there is something there, but unfortunately, it's probably not with our two main strikers. You have to look towards Saka there and a few others that may be out on loan and just haven't come through yet. But Lacazette is getting too old, and Aubameyang has already been mentioned by Chris. Really, he's had a terrible season. You're expecting a lot more, but then, with my experience, I know once they get a new contract. And the prime example is Adebayor, who was just disgusting at the end of his time at Arsenal. And when I said I've never booed a player, he's the one player I have booed. I've never booed another player in my life. And even when they return, any player that's played for us, they return, I give them a clap. I really think the world of any player that's played for Arsenal, except for Adebayor and perhaps Bentley. But there is progress. I don't think we're going to reach the top 4. My main progress will be to finish above Spurs and hopefully 5th and get European football next year, because our coffers are getting so low that we can't afford another season or a season out of Europe. We really need Champions League football. And I tell you, I know because of the different organisations I belong with in the club, I know all the money ins and outs. And we are hemorrhaging so much money through not being in the Champions League. We can't afford this year is going to be a real problem. And whether or not we can keep our loanees, I don't know, because I don't think we'll be able to afford them next year. So there is.
Well, if you can't afford Gunnosaurus, how are you going to afford Odegaard?
Yeah. Well, we can joke about that, and I think that was a really bad move, because obviously Jerry is inside Gunnosaurus, is a good mate of mine. We work together because I do away coaches as a volunteer, looking after supporters on the coach. So I get all over the country, and I hate to say it, but I think I may have been to Old Trafford more than you have, because it's a difficult place to get
Tony,
to.
You've come out.
The traffic really
come out with
smells.
the knife and daggers for Al today, didn't you? I like it. Keep it going.
I like Al because he's really been honest about the game he saw, and I agree with what he saw with the derby. And sorry, I've just got to mention one thing I forgot to mention was the 71 when Ray Kennedy 71 when we won the double, and we had to we beat. If we didn't win against Spurs, Ray Kennedy scored in the 88th minute, and that meant that we won the league because Leeds couldn't overtake us if we beat Spurs. If we'd drawn, Leeds would have won. So a big thank you to Ray Kennedy, who obviously later became a Liverpool player.
Yeah,
but
shout
anyway,
out Ray Kennedy.
I could talk all bloody day.
Oh no, I think that's quite poignant there. I think you said, finishing 5th and above Spurs, and potentially trying to get back into Champions League. Yeah, I would argue, that probably is progress, because ultimately you got to Europa League last season. You won FA Cup.
Yes.
Was that last season?
Yes, against Man City, who we should have lost to, everybody said. And then in the final, Chelsea a win. They didn't. So well done, Arteta, for bringing the FA Cup to us once more, which I may remind people is for the 14th time, which is one more than a certain other team that playing better.
So I think it wasn't necessarily a bad season last season, and a lot of people moan, but you've got that to look, European football, be it Europa League, and you got the FA Cup. So this season, he's kind of put himself up to quite a high bar, really. I mean, so Tony, you're saying 5th and Champions League. I suppose Gravy and Chris.
Well,
what's progress for you,
I let
man,
Chris speak, because
season?
Chris has watched a lot more Arsenal than me this season, I just want to say, guys, please do not forget to like, share, and follow our podcast. It is available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and a new one that I didn't know about is called Cast Box. We've been getting a few views on there as well. So I just want to please leave a comment. Like, we have got top 5. Please leave a top 5. Let us know. Let's discuss it. But Chris, I'm going to pass it to you because you just watched Arsenal a lot more than me.
Yeah, do you know what? You look at positioning and you look at games that you win throughout a season, and sometimes overall picture it can be misleading, and it can make you. It doesn't necessarily lend you to address issues, and an example of that, where stats can sometimes make you not address issues that are there is with Liverpool. They obviously had like 3 unbelievable seasons, and they didn't feel the need to really address their squad. But then they had a couple of injuries, like everyone gets, and they've been found wanting. Now, obviously, any team that loses their 3 main centre backs is going to struggle, but they didn't address the issues. Now, at the same time with Arsenal, obviously winning an FA Cup was brilliant, and it gave Arteta a bit of time, and it gave us a bit of joy after what's pretty much been a decade of disappointment. It has given Arteta time to address things which for a long time haven't been addressed, like addressing the pattern of place. It hasn't really been since Cazorla and Rosicky and Ramsey were in their pomp that we actually have played attacking, interesting football, and Arteta is trying to bring that back. He's also trying to bring back a back 4 that knows how to defend, and you aren't going to spend 70 minutes of every match going, oh, there's a mistake coming, here it comes, there's going to be a long ball, or someone's going to fail to clear it, or smash it into the back of someone's head and score an own goal. He's trying to coach players to make them better, and he's trying to coach us in a way that as a unit, as a team, whoever plays, we are defensively solid. And I think if you look at our stats, we are conceding less goals, and we have been a lot better since the turn of the year. So in terms of progress, I would say 100% unequivocally, if you look at the way that we're playing now compared to the way we were playing last year, we are a better team. And should we be able to make some savvy signings, I'm sure he's going to have to sell Lacazette or Aubameyang. I wouldn't be against both if he could bring in someone decent and play Martinelli. I know that will sound mental to some fans, particularly Arsenal fans, but we need to stop selling players when they're on their way out or on the way down. Like, we're not going to
they've got value.
Aubameyang has got another 2 years max
2 years,
at the top, because he relies on pace. Lacazette doesn't hugely rely on pace, but you can't help but think that the way that he runs about chasing the ball, like, he's going to deteriorate once he hits sort of like 32, 33. Like, legs are just going to be shot. He was in the Lyon first team at a tender age, wasn't he? And he was captain at even younger, so he's been playing first team football for a long time. So his legs are going to go. So I think, like Tone's mentioned, there's clearly a need for reinvestment. We don't have the big bucks that some of the other clubs have, and we're going to have to, almost like a Dortmund model, sell on some of our players and reinvest them in youth players and develop them and hopefully win some trophies. I think I generally think that if we can go as far as we can in Europa League, avoid any massive injuries, and then do good business in the summer, that would constitute a successful season. I don't have any real thoughts about where we're going to finish.
You've changed your tune.
I just hope that we finish as strong as possible. Yeah, no, you're quite right, Greg, and I'm going to say it before you mention it. When we won the FA Cup, I honestly thought the way we were playing, the way that we were able to shut up shop and nick goals, and Aubameyang was doing bits, I thought we were going to finish top 4. And then at the start of the season, we were doing all right, and we were losing games that we shouldn't have lost. And I was thinking, no, we'll come good. I remember the Leicester game. Well, we battered them for 85 minutes, and then they got a sneaky goal at the end. And that happened too many times at the start of the season, and we just got too low down, and players lost confidence and all the rest of it. But reflecting now, I do think that we have made progress. He's affecting the way that we're playing. He's making us play better football, and he's brought on youngsters in such a way that hasn't been done for a while. I mean, Saka and Smith Rowe are going to be in that team for a decade. That's real progress.
If we don't sell them.
I think, yeah, those two players in particular are, you've got to look at those two as, one of the shining lights of, you seem to describe it as a decade of disappointment, but I think there is a lot to look forward to, especially if that's the kind of talent you're producing. Yeah. I think the only concern I have for you guys is that haven't you got a really decent young striker that's apparently
Martinelli.
His name,
Martinelli for me, if he's fit.
And he's supposed to be on his way out, and he's supposed to be quite good. And I'm shocked at that.
Agent talk. He wants like 30k a week. No one really knows today. We're all experts, but
yeah. So that'd be the only concern for me. But no, I think we've had quite a good insight there, really, and I think it leads us quite nicely on to our last topic. And I'm going to go first with this one and just get it nice out of the way to give you guys more time to talk. And that is our top 5 defenders. Now, we went through our top 5 keepers last week, and we've gone on to the back 4 now. This week, now, again, mine aren't in any particular order, and I am not for any minute saying that these are the 5 best defenders of all time. These are the 5 defenders that I enjoyed watching the most, the 5 defenders that I believe truly embodied what it was to the art of defending, and I'll go through very quickly why I believe that in those 5. So one of the first ones you've got to put up there is Mr. Jaap Stam. I think he just embodied for me what it was to be a Premiership centre-back. You had to be tough, you had to be a leader, you had to have no nonsense, and he embodied that for me. When it comes to Man United defenders, I'd probably say him and Rio and Vidic are like my favourites. I'm a big fan of Evra. But in terms of centre-backs, life was good when Rio and Vidic had that partnership. And when Jaap Stam was in our team, it was a good old-fashioned centre-back. And, I think he was a good embodiment of what a Premiership defender was. And as we spoke last week about our gravy and our love for European football, my other 4 defenders are very highly rated in European football. They didn't actually play in the Premiership. So number 4, I've got in Lilian Turam, because I think for me, he was a defender at a time where it wasn't about pace. It wasn't about all of that. It was about being the art of defending, not going to ground. In Europe, Central Europe, you go to ground, you've lost, and these players embodied that, and he was just a top defender for his whole career, really, for very decent teams. And, since then, his son's now playing at Mönchengladbach, who are being smashed 2-0 by Liverpool.
He's got another son coming up as well.
By City at the moment.
Who's coming up.
Yeah, so, it clearly runs in the family. The one that I used to just be so impressed by was Fabio Cannavaro, because I'm a short man, and I've taken a lot of stick on my life for being short. And when I found out that Fabio Cannavaro is only 2 inches taller than me, I could not believe it. Fabio Cannavaro was about 5'9", and he was that again. It proves an era of football. He didn't have to be a Van Dijk with the pace and 6'4". You just had to know how to read the game. You had to be a defender and actually do your job properly. And to be 5'9" and to get what? Didn't he get the Ballon d'Or?
He won the Ballon d'Or.
Like one of the only defenders to get it. That's, come on, for a guy that's 5'9". Come on. as a centre back. You've got to respect that. You know, a guy again that was at the top of his game for his whole career. The other one that used to excite me most, and I got this guy quite late in life. That was Cafu. You know, I got him quite late in life when I started watching him and what he could do. And that guy, like, if you want to talk about fullbacks, yeah, come on. We talk about players that embody roles. You know, the Makalele role, the this role, the that role, the number 9, the winger, the right midfielder. Cafu, come on, as a flying fullback, there weren't many better than him. And then, as you can say, yeah, again, it's very heavily European based. And then the last person, which is probably most people's number 1, and that is the man himself, Mr. Paolo Maldini. Again, I think what made me choose him as, you know, for me, one of the best of all time, is that concept of not going to ground. He was not blessed with pace. Went to ground at all. You know, Maldini was not blessed with pace. He never went to ground. These are these defenders that would die on their sword before they slid, like, you know, some of our British defenders. They would die before they did that. It was an art of defending. You will not see many better than that. And actually, it's hard to see throwbacks to that at the moment. You know, the new centre back is all pacey and, you know, built like a tower. And he was just a clever defender. And for that reason, he makes my top 5. So, Tone, let's hear your top 5.
Very interesting, Tone.
Well, they're very different from yours. I really, really like your choices there, Al. They're very good. I do know about them. Obviously, I've seen Jaap Stam loads of times. The others playing mainly in Europe, I don't see so often. So you're not going to be surprised by how I go. In 5, in 5th position, Sir Bobby Moore. West Ham captain, captain of the 1966 World Cup and winners. The guy was a general on the field. He was so calm and composed. I couldn't believe how good this bloke was. He read the game so beautifully. I'm surprised he's only at number 5. Played over 600 games for West Ham, I know, but I actually got to see him play live a lot of times. I moved to Putney in 1969 and Fulham was only a mile down the road. So as Greg knows, I used to walk to, when I wasn't working, walk to the ground, get a ticket, which was quite easy in those days. And I'd watch when Sir Bobby Moore played for Fulham, and he wasn't the captain. Alan Mullery was another great midfielder there. It was superb football to watch. He just took the game, and it was very difficult scoring against Fulham then. They had some really good players. And of course, 75, I was at the cup final, West Ham v Fulham, and unfortunately, he was on the losing side to his old team, West Ham. 2 goals by Taylor in the second half. But you can't, and in point of fact, I sort of attended the funeral, which was in Putney Vale. I sort of touched my forehead as Hurst went by as he went to his burial. Very, very sad. The youngest player, the first player to die from that 66 squad, and it was another 14 years until Alan Ball died, so quite a long time. In 4, I better be quick because you'll see running late. It'll be Stewart Pierce, psycho himself. Loved his commitment, loved his passion, and Nottingham Forest told what Brian Clough did to bring him in from Coventry, really turned him into an amazing player. Played central defence, also did left back. But what a great player for England, and so sad that he missed that penalty, which he became famous for, but hopefully made a fortune when those adverts were made. But of course, he got his own back 96 when he scored a lovely penalty in the Euros. So that Stewart Pierce. In 3, and he could have been number 1, but he actually played for the enemy, it's got to be Sol Campbell. Sol Campbell, we used to have terrible times until Sol arrived, coping with Drogba. Sol Campbell could take any attacker out. He was just beautiful the way he timed it. And of course, I remember when Arsene Wenger signed him, Arsene Wenger could have said, I had to sign that guy when the opportunity arose, because he was the only defender that our attackers couldn't get past. And of course, I did get to see him play for Spurs in almost his final game when he got injured with the Ray Parlour tackle and left the field at your place, Old Trafford. So I was there, and I was so pleased, I hate to say about injuries, so pleased that he wasn't playing, because it meant we went on to win that game. And I had a lovely weekend up in Manchester. And that's again the family of Arsenal. What a boy, did we have fun. And by the way, it's the mayoral election this year, and a lot of people don't know, Sol Campbell tried to be a candidate to be Mayor of London a few years ago. Anyway, have a look at Sean Bailey. He looks like a very good candidate this year. Sorry, political bit over. Then where are we now? In 2, Kenny Sampson. Kenny Sampson, the most capped left back for England, played about 80 times for England. I don't know the exact numbers. Didn't score too many goals, but boy, did he have speed. And when you talk about height, he was only 5'6", but boy, could he run. And if something went wrong at the other end, he had the speed to get back and defend. And obviously England recognised him as one of the most Arsenal capped players for England. And lastly, I think you can all guess who number 1 is going to be. Donkey himself, Mr. Tony Adams. My name's Tony. I used to always wear a shirt with Tony on the back and the number 6. I love the man. Yes, he had his faults, but when you saw that back four commanded by Tony Adams, and with what George Graham did for that back four, that they became so famous, and for those that have seen the Full Monty, they got those blokes to dance in time, copying what the Arsenal back four did. He had a tremendous one, and I could have just said the Arsenal back four for my top 5, but out of fairness to all of you, I've put in a few other players. So Tony Adams is definitely my number 1. I love the man. Sorry about all his drink problems, but he now runs a superb charity to help gamblers and drink alcoholics who play football and any sport. And so, marvellous man. Back to you, Al.
Well, that is very much a comprehensive back four, top 5. And I think when I looked at some other people's top 5s online, Bobby Moore was always about 3rd or 4th, and I never got to watch him play or saw any videos of him playing. So I always did think, was he really that good? But to hear your account of it,
I can't tell you. He wasn't fast, but the way he read a game, he was always in the right place. You had to see one of the things he did, because he had a load of problems in Colombia where they fitted him up for a supposed theft and then put him in. He had to stay inside for 4 days in Colombia when he landed there again, and there was no evidence at all. But Bobby Moore, in one of those finals in that year, which I think Brazil went on to win, he put in this amazing tackle, which was a certain goal, and I still remember it. It was just brilliant. And of course, I was around for 1966 to see. I could never have got to the final, but I got to see that on telly in black and white. And
what
last time the Spurs won the league, I think, was in black and white. Yeah, it was. I can't tell you. You could hear a pin drop in the street. There was not a single person on the streets that day. Honestly, it was so quiet.
Yeah, and I think the only time I've ever witnessed that really was the famous England-Germany game when was it Euro 96? That was the only time that I remember. I remember I was watching it and my mum asked me to go down the road to give her friend something, and I remember thinking, what on earth are you doing to my life? Yeah. And I ran down that road and there was nobody in that street. And when I got to the woman's house where I had to drop something off, same thing. Her husband, all their friends were just glued to the screen. And I ran back, and I remember thinking, "Don't do that to my life."
Do you know
again,
what, Al?
Because
I got a confession.
that was too tight of a game.
About that Euro 96. That was the only time that I have been close to crying out a football game on TV. That was the one. It nearly brought a tear to my eye. I was that upset. Like, I think I must have been about 12 when that happened. Like, yeah, I remember that. Do you want me to go with mine? I don't mind doing my top 5 now.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Top 5. Save the best till last. Which is Chris. That's obviously you, Chris. I'm giving you a bit of kudos.
As I say, you do know Chris is coming up, yeah?
I'm saving Chris till last. My top 5 is very similar to yours, Al. It's funny.
I thought I was trying to blow you off there, Chris. Sorry about
that.
It's
very, very similar to yours, Al, if I'm honest, but it just shows that we've watched a lot of football together. So, number 5, I've actually done mine in order, Al. So, next week, you better do your top 5 midfielders in order, because you had a little go at me for not having my goalkeepers in order. I had to scramble and put them in. So, at number 5, Al, you picked him. He's only played for 4 clubs, which were Monaco, Parma, Juventus, and Barcelona, and that's Lilian Turam. Definitely number 5 for me. 100% he's there. He's only won a league title once, by the way. well, twice. He's won it twice, but that was at Juventus. He hasn't won a league title anywhere else.
It's got a World Cup in
he
there
has,
somewhere.
and a Euros. At number four, it's Yapstam. The guy was a monster. Like, he had that serious Terminator face. Like, don't F with me. Like, I will hurt you. And that was it. Number 3 was split between Tony Adams and Sol Campbell. But obviously this top 5 list is obviously done on players that I've seen play like more. And I saw Sol Campbell play more than I saw Tony Adams. So for that reason, what a legend he was, part of the Invincible team. Scored a goal in the Champions League final. I've got to put Sol Campbell in there. At number 2, and this burns me, Al, because I have 2 United players in my top 5, and number 2 is Rio Ferdinand. I just don't think you can not respect.
Yeah, I struggle not putting him in there. I did struggle not putting him in there.
I put him at number 2 just because he was phenomenal. Like, what a player he was. And I've read his autobiography, and that time,
and from that
time of, I remember Chris always saying to me, like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't want to work, was a prime example of Rio, because he had the talent, but he realized there was a point of his life where he had to put in the hard work to be great. And he done that, and look what he done. So for that, like, yeah, Rio. And number 1, he was Al's number 1, an absolute monster, the one club guy, Paolo Maldini. Like, for me, he learned from the best. He learned from Baresi, man. The guy was always going to be a monster. And that just shows you back then, Italian defenders were the one. But yeah,
Italian defending was something else. It's what you build.
Cannavaro,
it's probably what to this day, like, what you still build players. That you play.
Baresi,
Nesta,
like they the best. Yeah.
And even just that league. I mean, remember Javier Zanetti? Just that league, just being in that league at that time in the 90s, it just bred so many phenomenal Maldini defenders. I think that's probably still what people build their defenders on. That kind of player.
So that's my top 5.
Yeah.
I'll pass you on to Snells to take it home.
Top 5 defenders. Okay. This. Yeah, I'm not going to do it in any particular order. There's some pretty serious exclusions here, in my opinion, but we'll see. So, I'm going to go out and say, in terms of actual defending, like being right place at the right time, keeping clean sheets, winning football matches, I'm going to start off with a Chelsea player, which makes me feel a bit sick thinking about it. But
please don't say John Terry.
I'm going to say John Terry. In terms of a natural defender, in the last 20 years, he's the best England have produced.
I know it hurts, man. I know.
He's the best England have produced. So he was a better natural defender than Rio. Rio was just far more technically and athletically gifted. There, I said it. I would have to say that I'm going to have to put Nesta in there. I'm also going to put Maldini in there because Maldini was just a monster and played till 40 or some big age.
Yeah.
Like just played left back, centre back, wherever. So that's 3. He's not a popular guy, but if we're going down against someone's monstrous impact and their ability to defend and their will, and also someone that you should be able to appreciate as a shorter guy, is Mr. Puyol. He was not everyone's cup of tea.
Dirty player, bro.
He did all the nasty, niggly things that winners do, but he was an absolute monster.
Dirty player.
Yeah,
that Barcelona team was not the same team without him. When he left, they went downhill. Simple as that. Gerard Piqué is not Charles Puyol. He was an absolute monster. And then, because I've not covered any fullbacks, and we're talking about the art defending here, I'm going to put in the man, which is a weird sentence for me to say, the man that broke my heart, and that is Ashley Cole. He was
good old Ash.
He was an absolute phenomenon. He could do absolutely everything. He's the only defender I ever saw pocket Messi and Ronaldo. He pocketed everyone. He was just, and when he left for Chelsea, he did break my heart. That was where my distrust for people began. Yeah, honestly, in terms of Cheryl Cole. In terms of defending fullbacks, you take out Maldini because he was the centre back that played left back. But let's not get into semantics. He was the ultimate fullback in my opinion. He was. But you can keep your Roberto Carlos. You can keep your Cafu. I'm having Ashley Cole.
You know what stacks it? Everyone
in his time, he was arguably the best in his position in the world.
That's gone
in his prime, he was arguably.
He was.
I've gone for 5 straight centre backs. You guys mixed it up a little bit. I feel a bit bad that I didn't put any wing backs or right back, left backs. Mine were all straight centre backs, all straight. But no, that was great.
Yeah, Ashley Cole is.
Chris, I found your list quite intriguing actually, because obviously you're a little bit younger than myself, and like I didn't know you knew about Nesta, if I'm honest. So I'll give you little props for that still.
Yeah,
another player that like Rio, I struggled not to put in, because I remember when he went from Lazio to Milan, and it was just, anybody at that time when he was up for grabs, if they would have got him, would have just been.
I mean, yeah, Nesta and Maldini were. I mean, Nesta, what he did at Lazio was just unreal, and that's obviously why.
Was that when Sven was there, innit?
John Terry. Sven was there? John Terry really was the best.
Yeah, because I think they won the league.
Sven,
league,
innit?
And then he might have gone not long after that.
Yeah, he was in that. He was in that same team as Veron, as Crespo. What was his name?
Nedved, possibly.
Nedved was there.
Don't talk to me about Nedved, the man that robbed Thierry Henry of Ballon d'Or. Don't talk to me about that fraud.
Man like Pavel.
I'm getting angry thinking about it. We need to wrap this up before I say something.
Well, to be fair, it's been, I think, just like last week when we looked at those goalkeepers, it's been very interesting. I think, I'm not surprised that once again, Gravy and ours have pretty much interlinked, and even the ones that are honourable mentions for me are on his list, and the ones that he has honourable mentions are on my list. But I think, again, what's quite key in all of that is it's who we saw as those, almost, if you had unlimited champ manager money, or you could buy a player for your team, that's who you'd go for. And I think there've been some really tough decisions there. But I think add that to the goalkeepers. I think those two keepers and defenders are going to be the easiest ones to do, because now we move on to midfielders and forwards, and I don't envy that one. I think midfielders are going to be the hardest.
We'll have to do wingers separate, because
I think midfielders are going to be the hardest.
I can't be trying to wedge wingers into my top 5 centre mids.
That's going to be real hard. Top 5 midfielders.
There are too many. There are too many centre midfielders I could put on my list, and I'm sure, Tone, in your time, you've seen some absolute quality. Like, let's not talk about fullbacks, wingbacks, wingers, like centre midfielders. I'm sure, Tone, you've seen some real quality ones in your time, man.
Sorry, Al, are we talking midfielders?
Yeah, centre midfielders.
Oh, well, some incredible ones. Obviously, Liam Brady stands out. Obviously, he was so good. Spain bought them when Spain was always been the place to go, it seems. Liam Brady was just magic. You can't. David Rocastle died far too young. Obviously, mine all I've seen in the flesh, and it's difficult for me because I don't watch so much European football. I'm at a lot of live games, and that's how I go. And bear in mind, out of my 5, 4 of them were English captains, and Bobby Moore was the youngest ever England captain, and Sol Campbell was the second youngest England captain. So they all had leadership qualities, which I think is so important in defenders.
So a good question for you, Tone. Of the players that you've seen play against Arsenal, think about centre midfielders or just midfielders. Who did you see play against Arsenal where you thought he's absolute class?
Well, maybe because I've always been a believer. What attracted me to Arsenal in the first place was this incredible strength of defending. Frank McClintock, I left out, another incredible defender. But I think for defenders, you're quite right about Jaap Stam. I know I'm doing defenders, but for midfielders, the destroyers, I mean, Roy Keane, oh my God, he was just frightening.
Again, a very short man.
Yeah. And as I said with Kenny Simpson, he was only 5'6".
What a privilege it was for Roy Keane to get to play and come second best to Patrick Vieira all those years.
Well,
what a privilege!
I tell you, Al and the others, to watch those two up against one another, they were colossuses.
Phenomenal.
Man against man, and they wouldn't give an inch. They were both terrifying.
But they both had a great
There's
respect.
a YouTube documentary where they sit down together.
I watched it.
It's great.
It's brilliant.
Such a great respect for each other off the field, which is. And Roy Keane doesn't respect many people, if I'm honest. He doesn't even respect Ferguson. So like,
there's not many people that Roy Keane doesn't talk down. There's not many, you can't imagine him. You can't imagine Roy Keane talking to Patrick Vieira the way that he talked to Jamie Redknapp. You can't imagine it.
Vieira was one of the only players that wasn't frightened of him. And of course, you took Man United players that I've regularly saw. Obviously, Eric Cantona. Jeez, what a skill that man had. Shame about his temper, but bloody hell, he was brilliant.
Yeah, well, that's some of the best. They've got to live on the edge, haven't they? That's what they're saying. You've got to be on the edge to be that good.
Yeah.
Oh, Tone, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, by the way. Like, your insight to football.
Well, it's been
it really has. I think we've had such a spectrum of guests so far, and this is the first time we've had a guest that has literally seen it all.
And he's got that intelligence and that stamina to appreciate a properly good football club and to support a proper football club.
Yeah.
He's not United. He's not United supporter, is he?
No. Look, United are a brilliant team, and without good teams, you wouldn't enjoy good football. And so I applaud the brilliance of Man United and now Chelsea. I hate saying it, and now Man City. That they're brilliant teams to watch. Well, you're going to be really lucky, Man United, to be able to. I know you've had a good win against them, but boy, oh boy, this team is going to go on for quite a few years.
It is.
You've just got to wait for their manager to leave for any chance of doing anything with them. But it's been a great talking to you all, and I could talk for ages, and maybe another time. You just talk a bit more about the love of friendship in football, because I've got mates from all the teams, and we have a good laugh and we have a good drink together, and I just love the before and after the games are just as important as the game itself. And I just wish we didn't have to put up with all these bloody moaning sods that sit around me, and all they can do is moan. And I'm so glad that when Abue, if you remember that lovely player, Abue, he wasn't a great player, but he had to be subbed. He came on as a sub and got subbed because all the some stupid Arsenal fans booed him. Well, I was one of the ones that joined the "You've only come to see Abue." You remember that? Only come to see Abue? That's how I feel. And for any Arsenal fan that boos a player that's played for Arsenal, now plays for another team, let's just say the brilliant Oxlade-Chamberlain now playing for Liverpool. I was up there when they knocked us out of the League Cup? One of the most fantastic games I've been at. Incredible. And Oxlade-Chamberlain got booed, you ignorant sods, and that's my own fans. I thought you'd got to be joking. Oxlade-Chamberlain gives his heart. He may not be the most brilliant player, but boy, he gives it its all. And so I applaud anybody, and you've mentioned it, that may not have the skill but works hard to become a greater player.
Like your love for Danny Welbeck.
Perhaps they would have been. And I really admire that. Oh, Danny Welbeck is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I couldn't believe Man United sold him to us. I've met him personally. I've hugged him. I can't tell you. He's
pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID. I met him when he was playing for Arsenal, and I tell you, he's one of the nicest players I've ever met. I can't tell you how nice he was. I was so pleased, because I was always a fan of Welbeck, and when he came to Arsenal, I thought, oh boy, and it's just a shame he had all those injuries. Otherwise,
stay humble, people. Stay humble.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Tone. I promise when this is all over, I promise you we'll do an Arsenal day out, because actually the last game of football I went to watch before all of this was an Arsenal game. So I took my little cousin for his birthday to watch an Arsenal Palace about 2 seasons ago. And so I have been to see a few Arsenal games. So yeah, when this is all over, we'll definitely do an Arsenal day out where I can sit in your end and not celebrate when you score, and then go to the pub. Coincidentally, my mate, one of my very good friends who got me the ticket, lives in the flats that are opposite the Emirates.
Yeah, I know where you are.
And he lives there. Yeah, he lives there right by Drayton Park. And it was him that got me the ticket, and we went down there with his boy, and it was a really great game. So yeah, we'll definitely do that when this is all over. But it's been a great pod. So thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Right, so that wraps it up, which has been another great pod. So all that's left to say is thank you to Snells.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tone, you've been a legend. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks.
And I'll leave DJ Golden Child Gravy to do his last
it
little
was
plugs.
coming now. You know
and
it
say
was
his
coming.
goodbyes.
Yo, guys, don't forget, this is the Otto Let's Talk podcast, and please do not forget to like, share, and comment. And you know what? Put your top fives in, have a chat with us, let us know what's going on. And you know what? If you want to come to this podcast and represent your team, then please let us know. I'm actually on the hunt for a Sheffield United and a West Brom fan. And some females. Girls watch football too.
I might have
Girls
Sheffield
watch
United
football too. Ladies.
Yes, so we had a big chat about this. I am on the hunt to get some ladies on the pod, mainly because I have nobody to talk to about women's football. I have a big interest in it because I've got a little girl myself. I've got dreams of my little girl playing, and I've got to take a keen interest in it. And I don't have anybody to talk about it. So any women who are into women's football and into men's football, we would like to get a regular spot on for you to come and talk your talk. So please get in contact with us,
I'm DJ Golden Child, and I just want to say, let's talk.